You're listening to the Global Workforce Podcast. Each week, we interview an industry expert to dive deeper into the world of managing a global workforce and discuss the big strategic challenges that you're going to encounter along the way. This episode is brought to you by Omnipresent, the global employment platform that allows you to employ anyone, anywhere without having to set up an entity. Designed, built, and supported by global employment experts, Omnipresent takes care of your international employees and contractors, so you don't have to worry about payroll, HR, or compliance issues, making it easier, faster, and safer to expand internationally.
Today, we're diving into one of the most complex and exciting topics for growing businesses: global expansion through the lens of finance. I'm your host, Caleigh, and today we're talking about what it really takes for finance teams to navigate international growth, from regulatory challenges and tax complexity to hiring the right talent across borders. Joining me today are two brilliant guests who bring a wealth of insight from both the finance and technology sides of the story. First, we have Caitlin Browner, partner consultant at Xero. Caitlin brings deep experience in accounting and business consulting, and she's worked with companies navigating exactly these kinds of growth journeys. She has previously held positions at Grant Thornton, Australia, where she served as a senior associate. Caitlin holds a Bachelor of Business Commerce from the University of Technology, Sydney, and is a member of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. Caitlin, thanks for being here.
Hi, very happy to be here.
Great to have you. And we're also joined by Katherine Kellett, CFO at Omnipresent. Katherine has extensive strategic and operational finance experience, having served as CFO for global software as a service businesses, and brings a unique blend of private equity strategy and entrepreneurial insight. Katherine is known for her institutional experience, combined with entrepreneurial passion, contributing significantly to Omnipresent's mission of helping businesses hire and manage remote teams globally. So glad to have you here, Katherine.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me, and very much looking forward to this podcast.
Excited to dive in. Really excited to jump into the conversation. When businesses start expanding into new markets, it's often a major milestone, but it's one that comes with a lot of complexity, especially for finance teams. Whether it's navigating unfamiliar regulations, setting up the right legal structures, or managing financial risk across borders, there's a lot to get right. So I want to begin by talking about finance as it relates to global expansion. Expanding into new markets is an incredibly exciting opportunity, but it also comes with a range of challenges, from navigating regulatory requirements to understand cultural nuances. From both of your perspectives, what are the most significant hurdles businesses face when expanding internationally, particularly in terms of entity structure, compliance, and risk management? And chime in if I've missed anything under those categories. Maybe we'll start with you, Katherine.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is actually being able to expand quickly and flexibly. When you are going into these new markets, there's a lot of investigation that you need to do. And in the areas that you've spoken about, as well as perhaps resources as well, and just generally the overall sort of operational structure. So I think that would always be your first challenge: is how quickly can you get into the market and how quickly can you set up in the market that you want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say similar thing, as well as I guess being flexible and being able to make those decisions quickly, but also, I guess, that balance of having enough controls in place to be able to manage that risk, right? And honestly, just it's such a big unknown. There are so many unknowns when you're entering a new or in any area. But particularly with global expansion, you may not have that much experience in those foreign countries. So I think the biggest challenge is the unknowns, and you're just likely to miss something if you try to do it all by yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so to continue with you for a second, Caitlin, as you're alluding to, financial operations become significantly more complex when you're scaling across borders. And so how can businesses think about using technology like accounting software and automation tools to manage financial reporting, compliance, and day-to-day operations more effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it obviously does become far more complex. So it becomes even more important for having timely and accurate information at your fingertips. Of course, I am an accountant, so I will insist that accounting is the backbone of any business. Maybe not the most exciting part, but important nonetheless. So that accounting data drives so many key business decisions that I think it's really important that we can leverage technology to help us stay on top of all of that. So, having making sure that the software is easy to use, easy to stay compliant, but also easy to be able to monitor trends, having sort of built-in automation, utilizing either AI or machine learning, or being able to program the software so that it's more automated. Uh, and I think really importantly, having integration with other softwares or other apps so you can build your own app stack as it was, because each business is different and unique and has different needs. So being able to integrate all those softwares to be able to reduce sort of time lag or human error. If you're having to type it into multiple softwares in different places, you're likely to end up with errors, and it just takes a lot longer. So I think making sure that we have all of those integrations and all the data flowing seamlessly throughout is going to make sure that you do have all the information you need at your fingertips when you need it. Like Katherine said, being able to make those, being able to move flexibly and quickly, you need to have the right information in order to do that.
I love that. Thank you for going into so much detail. That makes a ton of sense. That's really helpful. Katherine, to jump back to you, what are some of the biggest challenges businesses face when managing revenue and cost across multiple markets? How do currency fluctuations, market-specific pricing strategies, cost structures impact financial stability?
Yeah. Yeah, these are some sort of specific items that we're focusing on today. I mean, there are other areas, but just following up on what Caitlin said, I mean, I am extensive user and experienced user of Xero, and I've implemented Xero in multiple companies and across multiple markets. Xero really supports with these sort of requirements that we have and these sort of specific complexities. But just to go into sort of responding to those specific points. So, with the multi-currency transactions and fluctuations, this creates complexity. Exchange rates can significantly influence and impact revenue and costs. And managing multiple international bank accounts adds complexity as well to the financial management and tracking. In Omnipresent, for example, we have a dedicated treasury manager because of the complexity of our banking transactions and arrangements. So you can see that very quickly, even though you might be a reasonably small company, if you are in multiple markets, jurisdictions, there will be significant complexity built around that. On market-specific pricing, different markets may require different pricing strategies. One market might tolerate a price of X, whereas another market would only tolerate a price of Y. And so you have to tailor the pricing to each market while maintaining profitability, which can be challenging if you've got fixed costs coming from different locations. Diverse cost structures can vary as well significantly across markets due to factors such as labor costs, regulations, local suppliers. Managing these diverse cost structures and ensuring efficiencies is also challenging. Overarching all of these challenges, though, and we've already touched on it, is the local compliance and legal requirement. And that we need to ensure that we are obviously compliant, not just with the local, but international regulations as well, which is really the priority concern when setting up in different markets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's so fun to dive into this, and I think a key theme of so much that we talk about at Omnipresent is just the complexity of this global compliance. So thanks for expanding on that. So talking about banking infrastructure, payment systems, they differ widely across countries. What are some of the key banking and payment challenges that businesses encounter when expanding globally? And how can they ensure smooth financial transactions? And Caitlin, I know you've already alluded to sort of the power of integrations and thinking through your platform and how it supports you navigating this, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think banking is such a challenging thing because whilst, yes, I think in this day and age, traveling around the world, transferring funds can be relatively easy. Um, However, I think when you're actually setting up a business in a new country and there are, a variety of regulatory requirements around having a local bank account, whether you need someone to actually physically go in and set up that bank account, or can you opt for sort of these more digital banks? Is it possible to have those sort of digital banks set up so that you don't maybe need to have, someone on the ground to manage those, the banking operations? And does that also help with, I guess, that integration piece? I, if from a personal perspective, recently moved to the UK and I still haven't set up a physical bank account because it was too challenging to be able to have my address and my, employment records and all of the stuff that you needed. So I ended up going for a digital bank that made it much easier to set up and navigate that side of things. So I think the biggest thing there is that it obviously is going to depend on the region that you're in and what the requirements are of the country that you're trying to set the business up in. Obviously, like as Catherine alluded to, sort of the FX challenges are probably going to be one of the bigger issues, and understanding how are you going to, how is cash going to flow? Because obviously cash is the bread and butter of any business. So how are you going to get money into the country, but also how the profit's going to possibly leave that country as well, if that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah, so much nuance and no one size fits all answer for any of this. And so to push maybe a little bit more on kind of the tax side of that, taxes being obviously a hugely complex aspect of this global expansion journey. What should businesses be considering and how can they balance managing compliance and controlling cost from a tax perspective? And I'll maybe stay with you, Caitlin, for a bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, tax is obviously huge. I think, if we just list off some of them, you've got income tax, local service tax, sales tax, tariffs, unemployment taxes. And then you've got to consider not only the tax rates that you're paying, but uh, when or how do you file those tax returns? Uh, is tax required to be remitted throughout the year? Is it just a once-off payment? Because again, that's going to impact your cash flows. Is transfer pricing an issue? And is that actually going to have flow-on effects back to the head office? It's not just about the tax implications in that foreign jurisdiction. It's actually how does that flow back to your, headquarters. I mean, I actually work for a small business on the side, and we looked at expanding into Rwanda for outsourcing opportunities. But ultimately, that became too hard because as we looked into it, the complexity and the tax implications just became too hard and the costs just outweighed the benefits. So I think when we're really trying to look at how do we manage and balance that, I think it's about making sure you have a trusted advisor, you have someone to lean on. Um, with global expansion, you need to get best advice. And I think you need to get it really early because there are some decisions like around, how you set up the business entity structure wise that are very difficult to reverse once you've committed to those decisions. And it may not be a big deal when you're small, but as you grow, and hopefully that's, what businesses are trying to do is grow and get bigger. Those smaller cracks tend to grow with you. So, yeah, I think, from my experience, we ended up talking to our accountant in Australia who connected us with someone in Rwanda to have conversations about all of that. And it was incredible, the things that I just hadn't thought of when it comes to the tax or the banking that they were able to help us with. But honestly, I didn't know about Omnipresent and those types of businesses. And I probably would have gone with, down that path as well. maybe in conjunction with my accountant, because it just made things a lot simpler. I was actually really excited when I found out about who Omnipresent were and what they did. So if we ever look at expanding again, I suspect that that's the route we'll be going down.
Yeah, thanks for expanding on that so much. And it's really cool to see just also how these tools work so well together. And I love that Catherine is a super user of Xero and there's a lot of synergy. So yeah, thanks for sort of expanding and also mentioning just the earlier you can start thinking about this, the better and the easier it makes it to build that foundation. And that kind of ties into my next question more around the team setup elements and thinking about balancing centralized versus decentralized teams. So some companies choose to centralize their financial operations. Others give more autonomy to local teams. Catherine, what are the benefits and drawbacks of each approach, and how can businesses strike the right balance between centralized financial control and this local expertise?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, actually. I mean, one of the things is the power of software and cloud-based software, and Xero being obviously the market leader in the accounting space with all the integrations that Xero now has as well. But this is more of a sort of human question. And actually, we spoke to Robert Half about this because they've done a lot of research in this area. And what we sort of concluded was that, a centralized team gives you the consistency, greater control and probably cost efficiencies, but it can be slow to respond to local needs. A decentralized team offers the agility and the on the ground knowledge, especially useful for when navigating complex local regulatory or currency fluctuation. But the key really is, I suppose, finding the hybrid, the centralized transactional work versus perhaps the empowered regional teams to make strategic decisions. It'll also depend probably where your other team members are, such as your sales team, perhaps your product team, your innovation team, those sorts of teams as well, perhaps where they're located, depending on where finance needs to partner more closely with those teams. So it is a very complex question and decision, and it will be very much based on the size of the individual company, the goals and objectives of the individual company. Overarching this, though, again, is this governance. It keeps popping up. There's no way around it. And we need to ensure that we are, compliant and fully meeting all the regulatory requirements wherever we sort of end up basing our teams, how we end up splitting our teams. And cloud-based tools obviously do enable us to be able to have a mix of perhaps a decentralized, centralized version of a team that perhaps we weren't able to have some years ago.
Yeah, super, super interesting. And so maybe to continue along that theme, whether or not a business is going for a centralized or a decentralized approach, they want the best talent. What should these globalizing businesses consider when it comes to talent availability, compensation and benefits, legal compliance, cultural differences? What should be on their mind as they're building these teams?
Yeah, again, another interesting conversation and something we actually discussed directly with Robert Half as well. And we were aligned on some key facts. Hiring financial talent internationally means more than just finding the right skills. It is about that local knowledge that we've talked about, that legal compliance, but also the cultural fit as well for the organization. Every market has its own expectations on compensation and benefit, and missteps here can cause reputation or legal risks. So we do need to be very careful with that and have a full understanding of what those sort of compensation and benefits packages should look like. Working with local recruiters and advisors does help. And we know Robert Half have a huge international presence. And that they would be able to advise in this area, especially when it comes to sort of contractual negotiations, setting up of payrolls and making sure we have all the right sort of tax requirements in place. Also, I think an employer's branding plays a huge role. People want to see how your values show up in your local context. So, we in Omnipresent, we recruit all over the world as well for our clients, but also for ourselves. And I think, the brands that we carry nowadays, the clients that we work with carry an awful lot of kudos. And we have employees that are absolutely delighted to work with these brands that we work with.
Yeah, I love that 100%. And maybe the final piece of that sort of hiring flow is that onboarding moment. So after you found the right talent, how can companies onboard finance teams effectively, and kind of coming back to this theme of making sure that they understand both the local market nuance and the business's overarching financial strategy?
Yeah. Well, recognizing that not just finance teams are becoming increasingly transient, they feel like they can work anywhere, and that is the case. I have a team, and we are very globally orientated. So, it's crucial that we do get the balance of local onboarding as well as global alignment. We need clear training for new hires, both on sort of internal systems and strategy, but also, again, on the context of local tech, compliance and reporting rules. Um, we found success by pairing global onboarding with market specific sessions as well. And again, using cloud tools to keep things consistent. And there's a lot more options around sort of cloud based training and support nowadays. The other way as well of sort of really sort of onboarding new team members and embedding them, especially in this sort of remote environment, is creating sort of informal mentoring links as well between local and global team members, which will help embed the culture and also enable regular feedback loops to ensure onboarding evolves as the business grows. But now there are lots of sort of innovative things nowadays that we can do with onboarding and integrating new employees wherever they are in the world, which is really exciting and, really, really enhances our global sort of market opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I just went through that and onboarded with Omnipresent in Toronto. You all are in the UK, and it's really, really cool to see how smooth that process can be now, and how embedded you can feel really quickly. And so maybe a final point for you, Catherine, just around the role of finance teams. Like, they're no longer just responsible for reporting numbers, and they're playing strategic role in business expansion. So how can finance leaders ensure that they're supporting the company's growth while maintaining compliance and mitigating risk?
Yeah. So, finance as a function, particularly in a scaling business, is a very fulfilling experience. I myself have, done a few roles now, and this is where I prefer to sort of operate and exist. You become integrated into the business, and you will be involved in all aspects of the business, truly partnering with the business. Um, the role of finance in a scaling business really does have two fundamental deliverables, though, and that is relevant financial performance information and cash risk management, as we've touched on before, and Caitlin's already mentioned the cash side of things. Finance needs to provide relevant business financial information to key stakeholders, both internal and external, because invariably, probably the business that you work in will have investors nowadays. Um, and by this sort of information, I mean, we must provide information that enables the process of decision making and support the business. So we have to be more creative and listen to what the business needs so that we can provide that information that enables the business to achieve its goals and objectives. For example, giving the business confidence to be able to grow. Um, Now, the key risk really for a scaling business is cash. Finance are responsible for managing cash to an agreed plan. So we will have a plan or a budget in place, and that will include how we're going to manage the cash and sort of expected cash numbers on a rolling basis. So this consists of, revenue, costs, cash collection, and cash payment. And that is really the cash management strategy. But if this strategy is off plan, this is a critical risk for the business. And finance are responsible for ensuring the business is aware of its cash position at any point in time, so remedial activities can be taken swiftly and timely. Um, so this is something that we are really conscious of, and we do consciously manage it within Omnipresent, but also this would be something, if I was sort of sharing my knowledge and experience with people entering into scaling businesses, this is what I would be saying. But also in a scaling business, the scope of finance is broad and extensive. And I actually could go on about this all day, what we do. But for the purposes of this podcast, I'm sticking to the specific point that we're discussing today.
Yeah, thanks for noting that though. I think that is super interesting. The scope is huge and it critically supports all of these elements of a functioning global business. This has brought us already to our last question. I will jump to you first, Caitlin, and then we'll wrap with you, Catherine. I would love to hear, just based on your experience, what are the biggest lessons businesses should take away from your learnings when it comes to managing financial operations and talent acquisition in new markets?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you don't know what you don't know, right? And this it becomes more evident the more global your reach goes. Um, I think it's Confucius that says, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And I think that's very, very key to this. I think you need to be able to lean on trusted advisors or people who've come before you or people that are experts in this field, so that you don't, make huge mistakes at the beginning. Um, and so that you have, I guess you're equipped with the knowledge as soon as possible so that you can start making those right decisions and so you can move quickly. And I think probably the last thing would be that in order to make those good decisions and to make them quickly, you need to have the right information at the right time. So make it as easy as possible for yourself to have accurate data at your fingertips, whether that's, well, in this day and age, that is really through technology, leveraging accounting software and integrations so that you don't have to do it all manually, because I don't think many people have excess resources at their disposal either. So trying to, make it as easy as possible for your business to get that information so you can make those good decisions.
100%. Over to you, Catherine. Same question. Just to tie this all up, based on all of your experience, biggest lessons for businesses to take away managing financial operations and talent acquisition in new markets.
Yeah. Well, implementing a global financial management tool is always the starting point, and that being Xero, of course. Um, then I think again, it's going all about this balance between meeting the local regulatory and compliance requirement and having that in country knowledge. Um, and what the cost and control is of the wider sort of resource team, whether you go for that mix of centralized or decentralized, and what that means for servicing local operations. Um, Also around the sort of financial complexities um, comes with managing new financial operations in new markets or in multiple jurisdictions. As we've touched on, the challenges of managing the FX fluctuations, the complex banking structures, um, the other sort of cost base, managing the cash, making sure the flow of cash around the different entities and jurisdictions is timely and effective. And then again, back to my sort of final point and overarching point is that compliance and regulatory requirements of local markets or new jurisdictions that you're entering into.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you both so much. That was an incredibly insightful conversation, and I think really interesting to just see a few recurring themes jump out right away from what both of you have shared. And for everyone listening or watching, we hope that this gives you a clear picture of the finance challenges and opportunities that come with scaling internationally. And stay tuned. We will be sharing the full episode link soon. And as always, thank you for being part of the conversation. System